everyday people, they create value. They create so much value in society. And we should really come away from that image that we have some sort of political overlords who know better, because they clearly don't. They just cook with water like everybody else. It should be a relationship on eye level. It should be the case that people are on top and political system, they serve the people and not the other way around. And that's how you should look, how people should look at it, in my opinion. And you can make that change locally.
Morning, Phil.
Good morning.
Great to meet you.
Likewise. It's pleasure to be here finally.
Well, it's funny when we get emails sometimes from people. Like, we get a lot where people are saying, Pete, have you thought about this? Have you read that? And very occasionally, I'm like, you sound like someone I just want to fucking talk to. And so I say, come over, and here you are. So I appreciate that. I'm very excited about talking to you about this. My headspace at the moment is the UK is fucked. And my headspace is that every time a country is fucked, it's fucked because of its politics and its government. I know there can be other reasons, but fundamentally, the problems we have in the UK are because of poor governance, poor politics. And I know people love Switzerland, and they always say it's got an amazing governance structure and very well thought out politics. So I'm like, well, why can't we have this shit? So let's go as a starting point. Give me a picture of what life is like in Switzerland, considering that everything you know about what's wrong with the UK.
Well, I mean, life is great in Switzerland. That's true. I feel unbelievably lucky and privileged to have grown up there and see how everything works. And I think the main difference is that the Swiss politicians, they don't have that much power. Like, quite the opposite, actually. The voting, the public is always on top. And I think that's our direct democracy. And that has a massive positive impact on our everyday life. And when you look at Switzerland, people look at it and they see a very small country. They see, well, chocolate and all the cliches that you know of. And the wealth that is certainly there. But it's also, it goes much deeper. Switzerland is split into 26 cantons.
Yes.
And all of these cantons, they have their own constitution. And these cantons, they compete with each other.
It's like the US in some ways.
In some ways, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Switzerland was founded in 1291, but the one massive shift with like a new constitution, etc., was done in 1848 after a war. And that was quite a bit impacted or influenced by the way the US is built up. And I think that is really the main reason why Switzerland is successful. I just had an interesting discussion the other day. A good friend of mine, in the meanwhile, who moved to Switzerland said, well, all the wealth comes from because you had this Banking Secrecy Act and a lot of money flew into Switzerland. That's why. I said, no, that's not true. You don't ask why enough. So why did we have this Banking Secrecy Act? It's because the people wanted it. It's not because the politicians wanted it. It's because of the people wanted it. And in Switzerland, the people have the last word, always. And that has a very big impact on our everyday life. It's like, sorry, you want to?
No, come on.
No, and I mean, like, this is, for instance, I can give you an example. When you look at the way we pay taxes, we have three levels of taxes. We have federal taxes, cantonal taxes, and then municipality taxes. And the way it's split, it's 30-40-30. So we have 70% is sub-national taxes. So in quite a lot of municipalities, it feels almost like a golf club or a country club, because you have a very, very close link to the people who spend these taxes. Like, it's also not that the people who spend it, it's not that they earn it, but the connection is much closer than in many other countries. And I think that has a positive impact on it. I mean, there was this one of my all-time favorite tweets of Naval. He said, people who start the wars don't fight them, people who spend the taxes don't earn them, and people who forgive criminals don't live amongst them. no wonder we have so many wars, we spend too much money, and
have so much crime.
So much crime. I really love it, and I think the main reason why that is the case is because the distance is just too big in many other countries. While in Switzerland, we have a very decentralized system. We have a lot of independent municipalities, and you know that if you spend, like if they waste that money, it's the neighbor across the street. Like that's how close it is almost. Obviously not everywhere, but that's one of the main reasons.
Well, it's totally in my headspace at the moment. I mean, you listen to the show.
Yeah.
You've probably heard me talk about Bedford, where I'm from, a lot. I cannot stop thinking about these things. I even wrote a constitution for Bedford the other day. I've started to think about how do you make Bedford better? And one of the ideas I have is that in Frome, a place in the UK, they had an independent takeover of the council. A bunch of independents ran against all the incumbents and won. And they had an independent takeover because they wanted the councillors to work for the town, not to be ideologically split and arguing the case for what central government want. And I was like, that's very cool. So this is right in my headspace at the moment. Let me ask you, have you got your equivalent of your own forefathers who said, at a point in time when we need to take power away from people? Because I'm also, I've talked about it on the show, but I've been reading a lot about the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers. I've just read George Washington's kind of goodbye letter and everything they feared. And they talk about, essentially, I mean, the main issue was groups of men create kind of centers of power, and centers of power lead to corruption, greed, and tyranny. So if Switzerland was set up this way, there had to be a group of people who said, hold on, this is how we need to structure our country, and this is why.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, we had in 1291, we had 3 cantons who basically founded Switzerland. But then the more important step was in 1848, and that was when the new constitution was formed. And then it was after a fight between the Catholic cantons and the Protestant cantons, and the Protestants won. But then in order to basically have a good life together, they came up with the new constitution. And what it says is that the people should always have the last word. And that's why we have direct democracy. I mean, we have like X hundred referendums every year that we vote about. Like everybody can basically start an initiative. You just need 100,000 signatures, and then it will come. Then the public votes about it, and then you need more than 50% of the public. Plus, you need more than 50% of the cantons.
Okay.
So that's called the Ständerat, which is basically the Senate, like a small. So basically, what it is that when we have 26 cantons, we have 20 cantons with 2 senates and 6 with 1. And so you need the majority of them. You need the majority of these cantons. That helps, and that was after 1848 to kind of have this national, well, how do you say that? This
like a unity?
Yeah, exactly. The national unity, because otherwise you would have the strong cities always basically deciding to make changes in the constitution, but that's limited like that.
Well, in the UK, we have strong central government, and when I say strong in terms of power,
yes,
not effectiveness, we have less strong but strong capital. And then other major cities have some strength, like Manchester. We have very weak towns, very weak and ineffective towns, which I think is why our towns are being hollowed out up and down the country. That's why when I wrote my open letter about the problems in Bedford, people replied from all around the country, said it's the same here, it's the same there. We have it very weak locally. Is this something that is ingrained into Swiss culture? Is this taught as a fundamental part of like education when you're a kid? Is this fundamental to like a child's upbringing? Yes,
100%. It's very, very important. It's like we have a very decentralized culture. It's like, for instance, like Zurich is our biggest city.
Yep,
about 400,000 people live there, and we have 9 million in total. So that's very decentralized. Even if you compare it to similar countries like Austria, also has 9 million people, but 2 million live in Vienna. So it's quite the opposite.
I was surprised how small Zurich was when I went.
Yeah, and it's like, and then you have these cantons. I mean, in such a small place, you have 26 different ones. And then only 25 minutes away from Zurich, you have a completely new tax system. You have a different education, like they compete to each other. Like I can just, now for instance, I lived in Zurich for a while. Now we live in a canton down south. We pay less taxes. We do have different education system. It's similar, but different. But it's like 25 minutes away. So there's strong competition. There's a lot of advantages in different towns, and it gives them independence. It gives them, well, a reason for being and just to be better than the others. And that helps. Competition is always better, especially for the end user.
So could you own a house in Zurich and a house in this other place, pay low tax in the other place, but secretly be in Zurich?
No, that's not possible. Like you need to live where, I mean...
How do they know?
They track it.
Yeah.
Like they will see your electricity bill and these kind of things. So
Okay.
yeah, that's not allowed.
That's okay. All right. So this is taught as a fundamental part of kind of a child's upbringing.
Yeah.
And does that create a strong kind of national identity? Because I don't really see the Swiss as ultra patriotic, but it sounds that you would need to be patriotic to at least the ideas.
I mean, that's an interesting question. There's another principle. It's called Subsidiaritätsprinzip, subsidiary principle.
Yes.
So basically, you can only be Swiss if you are a member of a municipality. So it starts with the municipality. If you come to Switzerland, you don't get the Swiss passport if you are not accepted by the municipality.
Wow.
So you're first a citizen of the municipality, then you become citizen of the canton, and only then you are Swiss.
So you have to work.
So it's not the other way around, and I think that creates a strong commitment to your local community. But then in the end, it's probably a lot of Swiss people, they know that we are quite lucky, to be honest. The system works. Everything works. It's clean. It's good. So there's a reason for that, and people think about that. So that probably creates the national identity as well.
So you have to be accepted by the municipality. So what? So say I wanted to go. So I was like, fuck England. I want to go and live in Switzerland. Sounds amazing. I find a municipality I want to live in. Apply to be a resident?
First, you need to live there for 10 years.
So I have to live there for 10 years in the municipality. And so I really need to stay in one for 10 years. Or can I move? Do I have to be in Switzerland for 10 years?
Yeah, so that changes from canton to canton. But yes, in general, you have to stay in the same postal code.
Okay. So,
and then at one point you can say, I would like to become Swiss citizen. Then the municipality has to accept you. And then in especially the more rural areas, it's like, I was just at home where I grew up the other day. And then you get this like local newspaper, and then the ones who want to get the Swiss passport, they are portrayed there. And then they are in the annual municipality meeting, or however you want to call it. They have to stand up, and then people can say yes.
So you have to be a good citizen.
They're integrated. Yes, they're integrated, and yes, and then it's good.
What are the benefits that you get with the citizenship? Like, why? Yeah, I could go and live there and go, okay, I don't need the citizenship. But what is the benefit of the citizenship?
Well, the main benefit is you can vote.
Okay,
and you can vote for all these things, right? You can be part of the actual community. You can start initiatives. You can be part of referendums. That's pretty much the main.
Okay, so
advantage.
In terms of taxation, you said it's 30% municipality, 40% is canton, and 30% federal.
Yes, roughly. That's an average. Average. Huh?
So that's the split. But what are the actual tax rates and bands? How does that itself work?
So that's then completely different from canton to canton.
Okay.
But we for instance, we have on the federal tax, and that's one of the issues that we also see is it's very progressive. Like the federal taxes, if you're a low income earner, you pay almost nothing, but then it goes steep, it goes fast. And on the cantonal taxes, they are different. Like some are very attractive for high income earners, etc. And then on the municipality as well. And there are very different rules. For instance, in
so these are the different. These are cantons.
Yes, exactly.
So Zug is the lowest at 22.2%.
Yeah.
and
Then it goes
Ghent.
up. Just Geneva.
Haven't they got a good football team? Yeah, they always get in the Champions League, don't they?
Is that true?
Is that
Geneva,
them?
really?
My cousin lives in Bern.
Yeah.
I went to a wedding in Bern. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so there's quite a big difference from Genf down to, it's like double the rate.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the federal tax. That's not the percentage of your income you're paying, right?
That is now probably blended.
Blended, okay,
Yes.
blended.
Yeah.
And so in Genf, you're paying quite high. What are you getting out of being in Genf?
Not a lot, in my opinion. I mean, it's also you can it's quite linear also to the standard of living. I would say, like Zug has a very high standard of living.
Would you say the higher up that tends to be more larger cities and towns, and the lower is more rural, or is that?
Not necessarily.
No.
No. What you can say is that the more higher up, the more collectivists are in power, and the more down, the more decentralized it is.
But that's quite good, because if you are a collectivist, if you believe in a strong welfare system and the kind of ideas that collectivists building, you can go and live there. And if you're like, this tax is too high, I can move to a different region.
Yes.
We don't have that in the UK. It doesn't matter wherever I live, in London, Bedford, Liverpool. It's all based on what I earn. It's all based on what I earn. And the way our taxation locally works is a council tax. It's down to the size of your house. It's a weird thing, but it feels very ineffective locally. I mean, I know locally in Bedford, over 70% of the money that they spend is statutory requirements on adult social care and child welfare, etc. And they've got very little, because there's a lot of other things they have to spend money on. There's very little left for town development, other ideas, like interesting things for growing the town. There's just very little left. We're spending so much on welfare as a country and also locally. It's become a real problem. And this is where I come back to thinking about the structure of the democratic process, the governance defines a country. And I think the shit show we're living through in the UK, and when I say it's bad, it is very bad at the moment, is entirely down to our political structure and political system. Even my son Connor, I mean, last night he was saying to me, it's almost like you've seen, by doing this podcast, you've seen into the Matrix.
Yeah, my eyes have been opened.
I mean, and he is, as a young man, just finished school a couple of years ago, is understanding like the reality of the world we live in the UK. What's been standout for you?
But you get fucked at every single level.
But what do you mean by that?
It's just a mess, isn't it? It's just a mess through and through. And it doesn't really feel like, unless you are exposed to it, you actually have any idea it's going on, which is a big issue.
I think
Definitely.
a lot of people in our country don't really I think they've, like I probably did, you grow up and you look at these politicians and you think, wow, they're the people who run the country. They must be the smartest people, and they know what they're doing. They're going to make these great decisions. And I don't like that guy, but if I vote for that guy, he's going to change it all. And I think we've all been gaslit into believing that the problems can be solved by a party. But I'm now in the position where I don't think the problems can be solved by a party unless any party fundamentally looks at the nature of how we govern ourselves. Because the incentive structure of this country is really in a way where if you're a politician, your goal is retaining your seat. It's the factionalism problem that the forefathers saw. And so they fight with each other, but they're unwilling to make tough decisions because they don't want to upset their voters. But they're convincing their voters of things that are wrong. A great example is, I know the Labour Party need money. Rachel Reeves has just had to announce that she's borrowed another 20 billion. There are talks of new tax rises, even though the last were really unpopular. They're talking about a wealth tax. We all know wealth taxes don't work. They don't work. They demonize the rich and the wealthy, despite the I think it's 30% of our tax is paid by the top 1% and 60% is paid by the top 10%, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I accept the wealthy have done really well out of this system because this inflationary system benefits those with the assets. I accept it. But when you try and kind of draw that income back, you have to accept the rich will just leave.
Mm-hmm.
And facts don't care about your feelings. But we're demonizing these people, and we're potentially bringing in more taxes. And we're, even like yesterday when Rachel Reeves said, we're solving the problems, the minimum wage has put more money into people's pockets. But what they're not being honest about is that they're borrowing, the way they borrow money is driving up inflation. That's actually making these people poorer.
Of course.
And it's leading to more businesses closing down. Business at the moment in the UK is really, really fucking hard. Mm. And so I'm like, I don't think any party is going to make a difference unless they actually attacked the governance structure. And, sorry, I'm going on one minute. Me and Connor went for a pint last night. And he said to me, Dad, you're saying all this stuff like it's easy. Well, why aren't people like Keir Starmer making these decisions? Why aren't they making the good decisions for the country? And I know, look, I'm saying it because the governance structure and incentive model is set up in a way which is driving economic and moral decline.
100%. Plus, also one of the most important things that I learned over the last few years as well is that we should stop thinking about that any sort of institution takes decisions. It's always the people in there. And so you have to look at what kind of people are getting in that position. They're not smarter than the average person. That's not true. They all cook with water. They have different characteristics. And a lot of politicians, they are probably very high on narcissism. They're probably very high on agreeableness. They want to be liked. They clearly, as everyone does, they act based on incentives. And their incentive structure is completely wrong. And that's how you should look at it. In the end, those are just people, like everywhere. It's the same for large corporates. They're not some super duper smart guys. They're probably intelligent, but it's just one type of person with different characteristics that makes it in a certain structure to the top, who can then decide. It's not the organization; it's the people in there. And so look at what kind of people get there. And I think that's a main difference what a lot of people underestimate. And so what you need to do, or what the structure should be, that there should be accountability for your immediate decisions. There should be a closeness to, like, when I take a decision, I see the result, and I have to, in both ways. It goes up and it goes down. If it goes down, I have to take the responsibility for that. In politics, that doesn't work. That's not how it is. Like, there's so many wrong decisions, and that's also that's also the case in Switzerland. That's also, and to be fair, that's also the nature of things. That's the same in business. People take wrong decisions. Business go down though. Politics, governments never go down. Like, they might lose the next election, but then we come back to the problem you mentioned. It's the same thing all over again, and the problem is just it's too far away, and then you have these discussions, and in a smaller group, in a smaller setting, smaller community, everybody understands that. The smallest community that we have is probably the family, and then you have your close friends, etc. And then it goes up and up and up, and the further up it goes, the bigger is the distance. The bigger is or the incentives are wrong in there. So let's make another easy example. Let's say you have a group of friends. They meet every month for dinner. 10 people, let's say, 10 friends. And one of them every month pays for the 8 of them, 8 people. So basically pays dinner for 8 people. One pays for him or herself, and then one, the other way around. So one person pays for 8, 8 people don't pay anything, and then one actually gets some money back. And now, in reality, you would say thank you to that person who always pays every dinner, who always pays. In politics, it's the other way around. Suddenly you have the ones who don't pay anything and just benefit from it, just get free dinner all the time.
It just came out in the UK, Birmingham, 25% of working age people aren't working. And by the way, I'm not going to demonize genuine claims on situations where people can't work and they need support and need help. I think it's a good thing. Life is tough. Not everyone has the same outcome. But if you have 25% of people not working, here we go, around 212,000 people, 28.3% of the population aged 16 to 64 years in Birmingham were economically inactive. If you create an incentive system for people not to work, you will get some who will take advantage of that as well. And it's a big problem, because what's going to drive further economic decline in this country is that less people working, which means a bigger burden on the welfare system. But if you also drive out the wealth creators or the rich people because of emotional reasons, you're also then going to put another burden on the tax system, because you're bringing in less tax from those people as well. It's screwy.
The humble bee, a keystone species crucial to the survival of Earth's inhabitants. Here's how things would look if bees vanished. And here's how they'd look if humans vanished. But imagine if instead we became a keystone species by doing things the right way, by taking responsibility for our actions and becoming the solution. Iron mines the world's most responsible currency the right way. Because the future depends on it.
This is something that I got wrong for a very long time. I always consider myself like a classic liberal, a liberal with a capital L, not the American liberal.
Yeah.
So, but in the beginning of my 20s, I was probably more in like neoliberal, almost like a Darwinistic, just the stronger gets it all kind of thing. But then I always had the feeling, well, okay, so I want to take care of, like, nature is important, and in public discussions, you don't want to be the bad guy. So I always felt like, well, you should clearly say something positive about collectivist politics, meaning like socialist politics. You should say that, and it's kind of a matter of your reputation as well. And then the more and more I realized that that's the wrong way to look at it. It's completely wrong. And in German, in German, we use the word Gutmensch, and it has this some sort of like a bit of a naive tone to it, that we say, like young people, they want to do good, and therefore they vote socialist, and we all know it doesn't work, but they're well-meaning. And then Gott the suicidal empathy. I mean, that gets closer to the actual reality, because
that hits hard.
Yeah, exactly. That gets very close. But then the English language there is much more precise, in my opinion, because then they also talk about virtue signaling, and that's also where we get very close to the actual problem, because it's a lot of just talking. It's just, I want to be looked at in a good way, but it's not the right approach.
I made the same mistakes, man.
Me too, of course. I did it. I worked on it quite hard, that I don't do it anymore. But it is a main problem. It's a matter of the narrative, and I think we should change that. The narrative should be, you're not doing anything good if you vote for any collectivist policies. And collectivist goes on both sides. It's a horseshoe in the end. It's on the right side, there's terrible collectivist ideas on the far right, and on the left side as well. It's just the public perception is very clear on the right side. I mean, it's 100%. If anybody says something, then the media and people will block them immediately. On the left side, it's much more, so there is sympathy, we can do that, but it's the same thing.
Oh, I completely agree. Do you know what was really interesting? You heard my interview with Freddie New the other day. Got into classics. We got home and we watched Gladiator. And it's funny, I watched Gladiator the first time, I must have been probably early 20s. And I watched a film about gladiators fighting, and I watched bloodshed, and I was like, this was cool. Watched it for the first time since then with my son, a little bit older. I've read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. I've studied a bit more classics, read a bit of Plato. Like, I'm slightly more educated. And I watched a film not about a gladiator. I watched a film about governance, corruption, and greed. That's what I watched about. And I didn't, when I watched it, there was this character, Marcus Aurelius. I knew nothing about him. I watch it again now and I'm like, oh, I know him. He's the great wise philosopher Caesar. And he talked about, do you remember, Connie, he talked about the fight. So Commodus said about when he was a child, Marcus, his dad, wrote to him about the 5 virtues. Do you remember? Like, it was wisdom,
prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance.
Yes, those 4 virtues have been really important. And Commodus says to him, well, I've got different virtues, but they're my virtues. And one of them he immediately said was ambition. And it immediately hit me is that you do not want ambitious politicians. If you're an ambitious politician, you're going to make decisions which is about your career ahead of what's right. And so that's where you have to have that's what George Washington's, etc., Alexander Hamilton's, they all worried about. And so it makes me, like, I see that now. I see the ambition in politicians and I'm like, I see it. I see through you because I see it. There's no backbone there. But I do then wonder, in Swiss, do you now attract a different type of person into politics, or do you have the same kind of person, but the governance structure stops them?
I would say we have the same kind of person. The Swiss politicians are not better or more intelligent or anything, but the structure stops it. The structure takes a lot of power away from our politicians, and that's a good thing. That's because, like, let me give you another example. Like, we had about 15 years ago, we had one of these initiatives which basically forbid to build minarets in Switzerland.
What's a minaret?
Minaret is from Islam, like some sort of a Islamic church.
Okay.
We had 2 in all over Switzerland, 2 so far. But then there was a party collecting signatures to forbid to build new minarets. And my first reaction was like, wow, that doesn't make any sense. Why? I mean, I have never seen one. I had to check it out, what it actually is. I mean, my reaction was pretty much similar. But then it went through. And so the result from our structure is less about, like, the actual result from the initiative, but it's much more that the politicians know that, okay, so in Switzerland, if I'm going too far on the religious openness, I'm probably lose my seat, like, because there is a strong sign from the Swiss public.
They don't want it.
They don't want minarets, even though, as I said, I still haven't seen any of the 2. And although, like, I don't know how they look, but it was a strong sign. So, and I think the direct democracy is less about that. The actual results, the actual elections are important. I fully agree, but it's more about having or keeping politicians in place. And so the next thing, now we actually have a very interesting discussions currently ongoing. We talk about the so-called frame contract with the European Union. And as everywhere, politicians tend to grasp for more power and more power. So politicians tend to like the European Union, tend to prefer the more centralized power structures. And so now that they're discussing about having this frame contract with basically all our contracts that we so far had with the European Union, to put it under some sort of an umbrella. And one of the facts there is that we would need to be required to take over European law pretty much immediately, or one by one. And so now our government, which consists of 7 people, we have 7 Bundesräte, they decide...
7?
7, yes.
That's your federal government, 7 people.
7, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that's like Keir Starmer is split among 7 people.
So
we have 7 ministers basically, and we have.
So we have 630 MPs, and you have 7.
No, we have a parliament as well. Like
Oh,
that.
okay.
No. But the actual the government, like Keir Starmer is prime minister. We don't have a prime minister. We have seven ministers.
You have a council as a prime minister, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Ah.
So those are the 7.
Okay.
And
so
they are always those 7 people are always built amongst the 4 strongest parties. So 2, and 1.
Okay, so just for people listening, we've got Wikipedia up. So there's 7 federal councillors.
Yes.
So 2 for the Swiss Peoples, 2 for the Social Democrats, 2 for the FDP, the Liberals, and 1 from the centre.
Yeah.
How many parties do you have? Like major ones?
Major ones, 4.
Oh, you have 4 major ones.
4 major ones, but in total maybe 10.
And is one of them the lead that they won the election?
Well, there's the Swiss People's Party. They have about 30%.
Okay, but they still only get 2 on the council.
Yes, right now.
Right, and the Social Democrats got pretty much half their votes, got 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the Liberals, got 176, they got 2. And hold on. The centre got more votes than the Social Democrats and more votes than the Liberals, but they only got 1?
Yeah, but that's so we have this history of being very, very slow in changing these structures. So the structure was always this: the 3 strongest one get 2 each, and then the 4th get 1. And so that was for a very long time. And now in the last election, it changed a little bit. But this is like, we have a tradition that none of these 7 people will be voted out. That happened like 2 times in our history.
Hold on. So those 7 people, are they lifetime roles?
No.
No.
That's as long as they want.
It feels a little bit like Supreme Court judges in a way, that kind of decentralization of power.
Yes, yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, Supreme Court judges, they pretty much, they never retire, right?
Yeah, and I found out why recently.
Why?
So the reason they're given a lifetime, I think this goes back again to the Constitution, but the separation of powers is that if it's a lifetime position, then you've taken away career ambition, because it doesn't matter what you do or don't do, you're still doing the same job. Mm. Whereas if you're say you're an MP, you want to get towards the front bench, and then you maybe want to, get a serious position in the cabinet, maybe become prime minister. So you're incentivized based on your own ambition. There's no further ambition. So and which I think is a really interesting point.
Well, we have a lifetime pension for them.
Okay,
which is pretty nice as well.
Yeah,
so.
that'll do. but for those then, so whatever happens, the maximum a party can have is 2 seats.
Yes,
so you have to form coalitions. You have to work together.
They are always and then they act as a unit. So then they have, like, for instance, in this. Let me get back to the frame contract thing. So now those 7, they said it was 4 against 3. That they want to, that for them, this new frame contract is not a mandatory referendum. In a mandatory referendum, that would mean that we need the majority of the public plus the majority of the cantons. Now they said no, for them it's not mandatory, but the parties can go and collect signatures for a facultative referendum. And what the big change there is that it only needs the majority of the public and not of the cantons. And that created quite some uproar.
Because they wanted to make it easier to pass laws.
It lowers the hurdles, because in general, what we can see in Switzerland as well, the cities are more left-leaning and the rural areas are more traditional. And so the rural areas, they have less people, but canton-wise, they have more power. And that was one of our USPs. And so now the government said, and that is where it gets interesting. Now the government was 4 against 3, that it's only a facultative referendum. And so, but now we have a group of people, they collect the signatures for an initiative, which basically says that all these contracts need to be supported by the majority of the cantons as well as the public.
So this was a pushback.
Yes, exactly.
Is that where they need 50,000 votes, 50,000 signatures?
100,000 for an initiative. Yeah.
No, I thought, but something can be challenged with 50,000.
Yeah, 30, I think, or 30 or 50. Yeah.
I read 50 this morning.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
That could be. But no, it's like this is now going to be very interesting because the way it is. So we got this frame contract that we haven't seen yet. So the government says it's only facultative referendum. So we will vote about that in 2 to 3 years. And now it could be, one scenario is that the majority of the public says yes, but the majority of the cantons says no. And then, because of the government decided that this is how it is, it would be accepted. But then, just like 1 year later, we would have another election about this initiative, which then basically says, all these contracts need to be accepted by the cantons and the public. And then the decision could be reversed. So what that means is that the power is always with the people in the end. And that is good.
I love that.
And that is, that changes the dynamics. And that's what I meant before. It's less about the actual result. It's more about politicians need to think about, if they decide that, what will happen and what will potentially backfire. It also leads to some weird results every now and then, and it makes our system slow. But on the bottom line, I would say, well, politicians who do less is probably better.
Yeah, than slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah.
So how often are you voting?
Well, we vote like 4 times a year. Different number of issues. Sometimes just one, sometimes just cantonal, sometimes just municipality issues. But I would say, on average, probably 5 items 4 times a year.
And do these items dominate news? They dominate discussion with friends? Like when you go out to dinner, you're like, this vote's coming up. This is where I think my head's at. What do you think?
It's different, completely different. Like this frame contract now, for instance, with the European Union definitely dominates the discussions already now, 2 years in advance. Like this is going to be a big thing for sure.
Reject them. Fucking reject the EU.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm positive for that we will reject them. But then also, for instance, a bit of a more extreme example, we had an initiative of one guy who basically collected signatures that wouldn't allow farmers to cut off the horns of cows. And suddenly, all over Switzerland, we had to vote about that. But that's an extreme.
What was the result?
He lost.
Oh, the poor cows. Yeah. But that here we go. What's this gone?
Voter turnout.
Voter turnout is 46%. What was our local elections? Like 20% or something?
Low 30s.
So that's average turnout on all elections or
probably
municipality ones?
No, I think that is now. That looks like federal ones.
Referendums, Swiss Council of States. Jesus, you have a lot of referendums.
Yeah.
I remember 2 in my lifetime, I think. We had Brexit and the euro, the single currency. Mm-hmm. I think the single currency was a referendum. They're the only 2 I remember.
Yeah, no, we have a ton, like always.
See, I feel so disconnected. I feel connected to the discussion around politics and disconnected from the outcomes. Like, I haven't voted in the last 3 elections. I've almost never voted in local elections because you don't really know what's going on or what impact it has. You don't feel like you can make a difference. You don't feel like your vote counts. I never voted in European elections because I didn't know who they are and what they did. This is just a complete disconnection from it. And I think culturally, that's kind of, we've kind of got to that place culturally.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very intrigued by this.
Yeah, I think that's the main price that you pay, right? I mean, you can see it in many different places with representative democracies. You can also see it now in what happened in Germany. I mean, the German public wanted a different politics. They want to change, and I mean it's a disgrace in my opinion on what happened after they voted, and then they still came up with like a 500 or whatever billion billion bill with the old parliament and basically with pretty much the same politics. And that's,
Sorry, what happened in Germany?
Germany is not doing well.
No.
As well on many different KPIs. And so the German publics, they voted clearly middle to right, more fiscal responsibility, so less debt, less regulation, etc. But then they had the AfD and the CDU, and they didn't want to work together because the new Bundeskanzler said they are right wing. Whatever that means. Everybody is right wing today, right?
Yeah, I'm right.
Right wing extremist, which is complete nonsense. But
it's a pejorative attack that's worked.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not working now.
Yeah.
Konstantin Kisin wrote a really good article, like something along the lines, I guess I'm right wing now.
Yeah.
Or we're all right wing.
Yeah, exactly. And so now what happens is that in the meanwhile, the strongest party doesn't have a seat in the government. But what they did is then after the election, they worked together with the old parliament and put through a massive bill, 500 billion and more, to fund some sort of special interests. And if you're a voter there, you feel cheated on over and over and over again, and that's how people lose trust in the democratic system. That's a terrible outcome, and that's clearly something that we are lucky enough to not have. I mean, there is a strong. For instance, another thing that was widely discussed was we had a vote about if we should have mandatory 5 weeks vacation. And it was turned down by the public.
Because I think Spain's just come to 37.5 hours.
Yes, but that kind of was in my opinion, that was a proof of a certain maturity of the public. That they said, hey, look, of course we would like to have more vacation, but it comes with a price, and we see that price, and it's always in the end, it's always the working class who pays it in one way or the other.
Yeah, of course.
And they understood it, and I think that was the main result of 150 years of direct democracy.
Very important that you don't lose this, okay? This is your inheritance through Bitcoin.
Let Bitcoin rip. Don't rip up your Bitcoin. Set up inheritance with Casa.
How much crime and poverty is there? And you feel free to separate the two.
Well, how much relative to other places, or
say you're in Zurich. Are there homeless people walking into cafes or supermarkets, filling bags with bottles of wine and just walking out?
There are some, but barely. They are pretty well taken care of in a sense that they get, and I would actually agree on that. Like we need to help people in our communities. I think that's people make mistakes, myself as well, obviously, take the wrong turn. So we need to be there as a community and help them. And I think we do that quite well. So you do see homeless people, you do see drug addicts, but it's by far not as bad as in other places.
But do you
8.1% compared to 18% here?
Okay, Switzerland measured by absolute threshold based on social assistance guidelines was the poverty rate is 8.1%.
Yeah.
And what is the UK?
18.
So we're double. I mean,
one in 5 people.
1 in 5 people are living in poverty in the UK at a time where you only have to see, you only have to open your eyes. Like economically, we should be doing well. There's a lot of wealth generation. There's a lot of money in the country. Yet the policies that we've had have pushed more into poverty. How much do you have in terms of like no-go zones in cities, gangs, and
none?
Just none.
No. No. That doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist.
No.
Okay. And as I understand it, education, policing is all managed locally. Is that managed by the cantons or the municipalities?
Both.
Okay.
But so there we have all three layers. So police is, you have municipality police, you have cantonal police, but you also have federal police. But yeah, so and education is a combination of both. So education, you have competing systems to a certain degree from canton to canton, but not completely. It's not that all of a sudden this canton can say, okay, so now we have only five years of education or school or something.
Are there some federal rules?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And but they can choose what? They've got some more freedom on their curriculum?
Yeah, more freedom on the curriculum, but also on, for instance, in the canton where I grew up, we only had 5 years of preliminary school. Cantons surrounding us had 6 years. So some small changes. So things like that, and then they can change on or compete on the salaries for teachers, which is also important. There, I would like to see much more liberalism, in my opinion. There, I think we are not on a very good track, because that's also highly regulated, also in Switzerland, in pretty much every canton. I hope that we can change that.
In which way? How are they highly regulated?
Well, it's like, you know exactly when you are 45 years old and you have 10 years of experience or 15 years of experience as a teacher, you know exactly how much you earn. It doesn't matter if you're a good teacher or a bad teacher, if you do something well with your kids or not. There's no competition, no incentive. And I think that's always wrong, right? That makes you lazy. And it also, even more important, it pulls in the wrong type of people.
Yeah.
And so we should have more competition there as well.
Well, I think that with politics as well. I don't think we pay our politicians nowhere near enough.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, and I think it's like 90 grand we pay an MP, and yes, we get some expenses. And if there's ever an attempt to raise their wages, there's uproar. We shouldn't be paying. Like, I'm like, fucking pay them hundreds of thousands. Let's get the best people in, because if you are super smart, if you go to school, you're a clever person, go to university, you look at, okay, I can get a salary of 90,000 and maybe 150 if I become prime minister. And I'm going to get hated and abused on Twitter, and everything I do is wrong. Like, why the fuck would I do that? I can go get a consultancy job in the city and get $250,000 and maybe $250,000 bonus. Like, the smartest people are not incentivized to go and become politicians.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. Okay, 477,000 Swiss franc. What's that in?
Basically the same.
Is it really?
Pretty much the same. Yes.
Interested. Hold on. So the Swiss franc is matches a pound to Swiss franc.
Yeah.
So they're getting $500,000 a year.
Roughly.
Roughly, yes.
They're getting about 4.5 times an MP in the UK.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's the 7.
But
that's
the 7. That's the federal councillors.
What does Keir Starmer get? It's about 150,000. So they're getting about 3 times what Keir Starmer gets.
Yeah, doesn't make any sense.
And there's 7 of them.
And there's 7 of them. Yeah. And you're not broke. I've got an interesting one here. So 93% of tax revenue in the UK flows through Westminster. In Switzerland, it's 40%.
Yes. Yeah, so exactly. That's what I meant. Like, the subnational level is pretty high in Switzerland. So that's why it feels more like, that's a bit exaggerated, but feels more like a country club or a golf club, because you know where your money goes. You know that, okay, if I pay this money, then I see hopefully the street over there gets repaired.
One of the things I really dislike in our country is the ability to endlessly print money. Like I say, Rachel Reeves just borrowed another 20 billion. Our debt is up to nearly 3 trillion. We never run a surplus anymore. It's $1 trillion in tax receipts, 1.1 budget. Every year we go over budget. Every party goes over budget. I mean, Labour campaigned on a policy of no tax rises on working people. Then they raised national insurance, which is a tax on working people, and the inheritance tax on farmers is a tax on working people. They're fucking liars. But in Switzerland, you have the debt break. Explain to me how that works.
Yeah, so that was another interesting and very successful result of the direct democracy. So in the beginning of the 90s, we had a debt to GDP ratio of about 30-something%, and at the end of the 90s, we had 65-ish%. So it increased quite a bit. And then in the beginning of, I think it was 2003, we had this the public initiative about the debt break, and then it was accepted by the public by 83%.
Of course.
So massive. And what it basically means is that our politicians are not allowed to run a debt, to run a minus budget.
Ever? Or can they go to...
They can go, for instance, during COVID, but our constitution says if you go into debt, you need to have a plan over the upcoming years to repay, to balance it out again.
But to go into debt, is there a referendum to go into debt?
No, they can do that in an emergency situation. But then,
what defines the emergency and how is it?
Yeah, so that's now an interesting discussion, because that is now, especially during COVID, because then we went into debt, and so then suddenly that was like, so is that now? Is that like an emergency situation? Yeah, probably. You can say, because they locked down the whole economy. So yeah, you might as well figure something out there. But then the requirement is that they repay it. In the beginning, it was until 2030. Now they expanded it a little bit to 2035. So all the COVID debt needs to be repaid within the next 10 years. And basically what the result of that is that our current debt to GDP ratio is about 37% probably.
It's not bad.
No, it's really good. It's really good. But you can imagine, I mean, as I said, we have the same politicians as well. It's like there's constant pressure on it, constant pressure to spend more. And I'm so glad that we have that in there, because otherwise we will run into the same problems.
Here we go. So national debt 421 million, your GDP 90. That looks about 43%.
No, I thought it was lower, but okay.
I mean, Taiwan. Who is lower? God, Taiwan. Keep going. What are we? 113%. I mean, Lynn Alden. She says 135% is the event horizon.
Yeah.
Every country that's gone over 135% has ended up defaulting, apart from Japan.
That's pretty much where we are with the US, right?
Sweden 35%, Taiwan 31%, Turkey. Well, they've had massive inflation. I'm surprised with the Turkey one. Saudi Arabia 24%, Russia 21%. So all the countries we're meant to hate are doing all right. All us fucking virtue signaling Western nations are screwed. I mean, look at that, 36 trillion of debt in the US. But I like it because, what frustrates me about our politicians is pre-election they come out with a manifesto. Here's our manifesto. This is what we're going to do. And then they win power and they go, yeah, fuck that. We'll do what we want. Yeah. Exactly what Labour have done. Exactly what the Conservatives did. Probably what Reform would do if they won. It seems to be the way. I think they should put out their budget pre-election. I think every party should go, this is our budget.
Yeah. Well,
and if they break their budget, it should be a referendum.
Yeah, the general rule should just be there should be more referendums, I would say.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I am 100% in that area now, but I think the incentive at the moment is say what you need to win the election and do what the fuck you want, and you might lose power in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
If you had competing budgets, it's a bit like a tender or a pitch. I've pitched on my advertising issue. We used to go and pitch. And we didn't always go the lowest price, because that's not always what wins you something. It was the quality of the work, the service, and the price were all relevant. If we've got budgets that said, look, this is the budget we're going to run, you might look at the Labour budget and then look at the Conservative budget and go, okay, well, the Conservative budget is lower.
Mm-hmm.
Tax is going to be lower. Oh, but look, we're losing part of the NHS. Or actually, I'm happy to go with Labour because it's a slightly higher budget, but I know what I'm getting for this. Yeah. But the minute, I think to me, a debt break should be a referendum.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to run out of money. This is what we want to do. A referendum by the people. Do you believe the government should spend this? Probably in COVID, everyone would have possibly agreed.
Yeah. Yeah,
or not.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I really think it's a very valuable thing to have in the constitution. I mean, one thing that we have to say as well. I mean, we were quite lucky in Switzerland with the Swiss franc and the strength of the currency, and that is linked to that we had the longest lasting gold standard, at least to a certain degree.
When did yours last year?
So the last year was 1999. But I mean, it's important to say that like the proper gold standard was until the 1930s. But then the SNB was always required to have gold in their vaults, depending on how much money they printed. But then they diluted that as well over time. But in 1999, it was still the case that they needed to have 40% in gold. So, and as we all know, that comes with a price. If they want to buy the golds and to print the money, that hinders them. And so we had that until 1999. So I think there's a
How did it go? Was it another referendum?
I think yes. In the beginning of the 90s, though, with our because we suddenly became member of the IWF. So that is now another supranational organization that we then became part of, and which is now, in my opinion, a strong disadvantage. And now we are still somewhat linked to with our reputation to having a strong currency. It goes away a bit as well. So I think there's a strong argument to be made that we are on a somewhat similar track when it comes to monetary policy as every other country surrounding us.
But it means to me that means there's a failure somewhere.
Yes.
Because if you want to weaken, you're basically weakening the strength of your currency, and you're doing it because you want to spend more than you have. Like, I always think about this in terms of a house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I have a budget based on my income, and if I want to spend more than that, I have to get a loan. So maybe it's a loan to buy a house. Okay, that's a debt I'm willing to pay over 30 years. And if I don't, they take my house from me.
Mm.
But there are constraints there. And if you put constraints in place, people have to follow the constraints. If there's no constraints, of course you're not going to follow them. If you can borrow, if you go to the Bank of England and borrow 20 billion, 25 billion because you need it, you will. That's what people do.
Yeah, of course.
But you need this discipline. So I'm surprised, based on what you've told me so far, I'm surprised in a referendum they would vote to end that gold standard.
Well, that is probably, I mean, that was in the beginning of the 90s, so it's not that I recall this. But it's probably the same reason that we see everywhere, especially if you have a bit of a background in Bitcoin and everything that comes with it. It's people don't understand the effects of monetary policy enough.
No.
And that is not any different in Switzerland as well.
So on this podcast, you are definitely hearing me talk about Bitcoin a lot. Well, why? We live in a really strange time with governments driving inflation with their reckless spending and endless money printing. There is a way out of this. There is a way to protect your money, and that is by stacking Bitcoin. I've made loads of shows about Bitcoin. You can go and research this. You can go and read the books. But the truth is, it is the hardest money ever created. If you are interested in protecting your financial future, it's time for you to get on the Bitcoin train. I've been stacking Bitcoin personally and through my businesses since 2017. It's protected me, it's secured my family's future, and it also strengthens all of my businesses. So if you want to start stacking Bitcoin, where do you do it? Well, for me, it's with Gemini. They're a fully licensed, full reserve exchange and custodian, so they give you a secure way for you to buy and own your Bitcoin. There's no risks and no funny business. So if you're serious about stacking Bitcoin the right way, head over to Gemini.com, which is GEMINI.com. Yeah, that it is a big problem. I kind of had this fundamental belief that we should be teaching basic economics from an early age.
Yes.
Non-Keynesian propaganda economics. We should be like my kids fucking know, right? I like to celebrate this. I'm in the car with my daughter the other day, and we're driving back from school and talking about things and what's been going on and the prices of things going up. And I'm like, well, why are the prices go up? And she's like, because of inflation. I said, why do we get inflation? She's like, because the government print money. And I'm like, what do we think of the government? She's like, fuck them. Like I've drilled it into her. I've drilled it into them that it's like Dominic Frisby said to me. He said, inflation is the biggest crime committed on the people of the world.
Yes.
It's the biggest crime
Yes.
because people don't understand it, where it comes from and why it happens. I mean, some do, a lot of people do. But generally speaking, they don't. Okay? And the people who tend to push for, weakening of fiscal policy and monetary policy and allowing governments to just do what they want, do so thinking they might be helping the people they want to help. The poorest in society, what they don't realize is they're damaging them the most. And so we start with math at 5, 6 years old, and English and history and geography, languages and science. To me, economics is as fundamental as all of those subjects.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. It's just, I mean, even if you study it, I mean, I studied finance and banking. Even then, you're not talking about actual economics. Let's put it that way. It's just Keynesian.
You're talking about engineering.
Yeah.
It's not good. Okay, let's talk about welfare in the country, because it exists.
Yes, it does.
But from my understanding, it's a system designed not to trap people, and it's like a system designed to help people when they need help, but to try and get them back into kind of work and being self-sufficient. Some people think our system's designed to trap people. Whether it's designed or not, it doesn't really matter. It fundamentally traps people.
Mm-hmm.
There are people I know factually will not go and get a job because they can get a certain amount from welfare. And if they go and get a job, the actual income, they'll have a period where they'll drop. And it's really hard. So we have a system that does trap people.
Mm-hmm.
How does it work in Switzerland?
I would argue that we also have a certain degree to trapping people in there as well. I mean, that's probably a lengthy discussion, but I mean, for instance, we have the so-called unemployment insurance that covers up to 2 years, and
in insurance for unemployment.
Oh yeah, if you lose your job, it covers up to a maximum of 2 years, 80% of your previous salary, but limited to. I'm not 100% sure here, but I think limited to about 120k. So if you earn 200k, you get a maximum of 120 for 2 years.
But if you earn 120k and you lose your job, in some ways maybe I can have a year off.
That's what I meant. I also think, that also slows down, especially if we in some cases you want the economy to change, you want people to change, right? Because otherwise we would be stuck in 1970s, right? So you need people to change, you need people to educate themselves, to maybe come into into another profession or whatnot, and so having this period of up to 2 years, that slows it down as well. So and I personally think, but that's then a political debate, I think it's 2 years or it's too long. 80% is probably too much.
Right.
Depends on case by case. But I don't think it's the biggest challenge that we have. And then after these 2 years, if you don't have a job, like you don't get insurance anymore. There's nothing anymore. There's social welfare. Social welfare then drops significantly. So meaning they just pay basic needs. You get an apartment, you get money for food, but you also need to repay it.
Oh, it becomes a debt.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then you have the extreme cases with like addiction problems, etc. Obviously that doesn't matter because they will never repay. But in general, you would need to repay it, yes.
Right. So I can understand some of the incentives with that, but also at the same time, if you get a house and your food, you might be okay watching TV all day every day and just...
but that's really not a lot of money then.
No.
But
if you got some savings...
Yeah. And it's pretty much direct payments, especially apartments. Like you don't get the money for an apartment, they pay the apartment.
Right, okay. So how do you have an issue of homelessness if that exists?
Addiction problems.
Okay.
Yes. So that's some people want to live. I wouldn't say we have an issue with homelessness, by the way, but
you have an addiction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. How does the health system work? It's privatized, right?
Yeah, it's privatized, but heavily regulated.
Okay.
So we basically have we have a couple of private health insurances, and you pay it on top. It's not covered by the taxes. And you have a so-called basic insurance, and that's the same. Like that's the same with every company, basically. And everybody's required to have a health insurance. So if you move to Switzerland, you have to prove that you are registered with one health insurance.
What's the basic cover you for?
Hospitals, obviously.
Emergencies.
Yeah, emergencies. Well, but also you have a doctor, like we call it Hausarzt, like the everyday doctor, basically. And you pay between 300 to 2,500. That's a kind of a first tranche per year.
300 to 2,500 a year.
Yeah, max, like that if you have something, if you're sick or so. The first 300 to 2,500 is
it's like a deductible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. But what does the insurance itself cost you?
That's so I would say that it depends a bit on your gender and on your age. So women pay more than men, and if you
Fucking hell.
yeah, that's debatable. Let's put it
But
that
is it
way.
because of women having children, or they just know statistically women have more of a need for healthcare?
Probably both.
I mean, look, if you care about equality, it seems unfair. If you care about, like women pay more for haircuts because they have longer time in the city. I know when I get my haircut, it's £25,
Yeah, tell me
and
about it.
but you see the menu. Mine's the cheapest as a man, and women's. But this is healthcare. It's like.
Yeah, I would say this is it's a fair debate.
Do women complain about this?
It's actually it's less of an issue in my opinion. It's accepted.
Wow.
It's not every now and then it comes up, but not in a massive way.
Right.
So yeah, you pay women pay more. It's not like double. It's maybe like 10% more or so.
It's just fascinating that exists.
Yeah, and then when you're older, you also pay more. And for that, and also depending on the canton that you live in, which is also interesting. So because statistically they can say people living in cities, they have higher costs, not only because of the doctor costs more, but also because people go more to the doctor than people in rural areas.
Look, insurance companies know what risk is,
exactly.
And they know what they should charge.
Yes, absolutely.
You could make an argument if you made it the same, this is discriminatory against men. But it's unusual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is, I mean, and to be honest, I don't think the healthcare system is something that people outside of Switzerland should look up to in Switzerland. I don't think
you don't think it's working well.
No. I mean, our healthcare costs increase by like 10% every year.
Yeah, but healthcare inflation's everywhere.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, really, and on many different levels. Like we have this mandatory insurance that everybody has to have. Politicians put more and more into that, and then are surprised that the healthcare costs go up constantly. And then we have like top-up insurances. Either like you can be privately insured, so that you have a better room in a hospital.
This is private.
Yes,
because
or then you can have alternative care on top of it as well.
Right.
That's then up to you.
And sorry, I can't remember if you just told me. Did you just tell me how much it costs?
So I would say, so for instance, I can tell you my costs. I pay about 300 a month.
Okay.
Average 4.6 grand USD.
A year?
Yeah. Ranked second in the world behind the USA.
So it's quite high in comparison. I pay for private healthcare for me and the two kids. I think it's about £300 a month.
Yeah, that's definitely cheap.
So what happens if there's emergency? I go to the local hospital. Everything else I go through my provider. And we've used it. Well, I had it for my back and you had it for your shin splints, basically, right? And we've had incredible service. Like Connor's, he had shin splints when he was, 16? We went to that. We felt like we were going into one of the best companies in the world. Beautiful building, one of the best consultants. And when I had my back operation, I phoned them up. I came back it was after I interviewed Bukele.
Oh, yeah?
I came back, massive back problems, phoned up, eventually went to the spoke to the provider. I was in surgery within a few days in a private place, beautiful, really well looked after, like an incredible service, entirely different experience from, it's like the difference between flying Ryanair and then getting on a private jet with a bed. It was incredible, but I'm only paying £300 a month. It's not a lot.
And is it subsidized with taxes as well?
Of course it's subsidised because any attempt to get people out of the NHS, they want, because the NHS is falling apart.
So no, I don't think we are doing that particularly well.
What's this? The average annual cost of the NHS per British person is $2,700. This figure is based on total UK government funding for health to fund the population. However, when including all forms of healthcare, social care, local authorities, the average cost rises for $4,200. Can you look and see if the government is subsidising private? So you don't think it's the healthcare is good?
No, not really. I mean, no. Let me be precise here. The healthcare is very good. Like our hospitals are good. The quality is very good. We also have private hospitals. Then you have a similar experience. It's just clearly price-wise, it's not working.
Here we go. No, the UK government generally does not directly subsidise private healthcare.
Yeah. So, but then NHS is paid through taxes, right?
Yes.
So basically, the way you would need to compare it is that the NHS part is basically the $300 I pay per month, which is kind of the mandatory insurance, and then what I pay on top is then probably comparable to what you have in your private insurance.
Your private.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So then I end up on around $500 a month.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know what percentage.
But I don't pay anything through taxes,
which I do.
Yeah.
But in some ways, you could say your mandatory is a tax because it's forced.
Of course.
It just goes through a private institution rather than via the government.
It's that's actually also one of the things that people outside of Switzerland always underestimate.
How much is lost?
They think taxes are so low, and they are lower in comparison. But then you have to add about $4,000 on health insurance per year. So
do you think do people in Switzerland feel? Do you think they feel wealthy? They feel like it's a strong, wealthy country.
Well, I mean, we have this Western culture as everybody else who was complaining a lot. But yeah, when it comes down to it, they know that they're doing very well.
And how aware are people in Switzerland of like other countries like the US, the UK? Like, do you get to see what's going on in the UK and you look at us going, what the fuck are you lot doing?
Yeah, quite aware. Especially, I mean, the funny thing about Switzerland is you can drive like 1 hour and then you're in Germany and you pay like half the prices that we pay. But you also see it really is different. I was just in Stuttgart the other day. It really is a difference. If you go from Zurich to Stuttgart, it's just you feel like you flew to a different world. And Switzerland, then that's just an hour, or like let's say 2-3 hours.
What's so visibly obvious? Just economic and social decay.
Yes, infrastructure is better. It's cleaner. People are healthier.
Did you see what Charlie Kirk tweeted about the UK? He came over and did the Oxford debate. Oh man, this one hit hard. You know Charlie Kirk is, don't you? Yeah. If you get his Twitter up, oh god, this one hit hard. No, keep going. It's a short tweet. No, keep going. Times. That's 17 hours. That was yesterday. Keep going. Slow. Not that one. Keep going. He says something about Americans, like when you've been to the UK. Right, here we go. Here you go. If you want to renew your love of America, spend 3 days in the UK. You will kiss the ground when you get back home. I was like, that hit so hard. That hit so fucking hard. Honestly, I was like, oh.
Well,
but that's
the US also has some sketchy places.
I think his reference is into a wide range of issues, but like it is. I mean, I'm going to say again, it's bad here and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
You know, it's getting lawless. You see the decline. There's nothing. You can't even. There's no real optimism. There's a lot of people are putting their eggs in the reform basket, right? Because reform are saying some interesting things, like they want to raise the tax allowance to 20,000. Nobody pays tax under that. They want to sort out the migration issue. There's various issues they want to deal with, but I'm still like, I got sucked into it for a bit, and I was like, yeah, but can you do this? Can you actually do this?
I mean, this was. That's one of the reasons I love the UK. I love the British culture, British people, and I read a lot and listen a lot about what's going on, and I was like, well, why is that? Why is that? I kept thinking about that, and also when you look at other the countries surrounding us, and that's when I felt very grateful about the structure of our political system, because that's where it all comes down to. It's, as I said, I mean, there's no difference in the people. That's not what matters. And I would agree with you, because you can see it now in the US as well. I mean, Trump had a couple of good ideas, I would say, and now this, what did he call it? Big Beautiful Bill or so?
Everything's big and beautiful.
It's
the greatest bill ever.
It's more of the same. It's more of the same. It's ludicrous spending, a lot of spending on military. The military-industrial complex gets a crazy amount of money. It's a lot of tax breaks especially also for richer people, and it's a massive omnibus bill. So it's the same thing all over again. It's the same thing. It's the same amount of money that is being spent as it was under Biden, as it was under Trump before, as it was under Obama before. It's the same thing. So it's a question of the structure of the system as a whole.
But it's going to be forced on them, because I think it's $7 trillion they've got to refinance at some point. At the moment, and I think their last bond sale I was reading was I think it was a 10-year bond sale, was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, it was over 5%.
Yeah, over 5%. Yeah. Our gilts in the UK are 5. I think the 10 years 4.55. That's only going to go higher.
Our so the Swiss franc, the national, the yield is 0.25%.
Really? It's funny because, again, it's one of those things. Until I fully understood it, I was like, oh, that high interest rate, that's good. That must mean the dollar's good because I'm getting paid a good. No, I started to realize, like, I understood. I think as Lynn explained to me, no, when interests are high, it means the currency's fucked. You don't want that shit.
Yes.
2.25%.
0.25, yes. So probably, I don't know the exact government rate, but it's probably about 0.3.
It is like there is a glue that's holding Switzerland together through all the chaos that exists elsewhere. It's like like an invisible glue.
I hope it also has to do with our history. And I mean, Switzerland in that sense is a weird place. I mean, we speak like 3 languages. We have Catholic, Protestants. Like, you cannot say there is one religion that glues us together. Can also not say there's one language. Clearly not. It's also quite different. You have Zurich. Okay, it's comparably a small city internationally, but still it's a city, I would say, compared to really like this Heidi mountain romantic in the Alps. There are a lot of different things. But historically, one thing that kind of glued us together is the mistrust against powerful people and powerful institutions. And that's been the case since 800 years, and somehow, and also like our national hero, so to say, is called Wilhelm Tell, and it's the same story. It's like he didn't greet the high priest coming from far away. That's kind of the story, right? He walked past his hat because he said, we are doing what we want to do. And I believe that is somewhat in our culture, and I hope it will continue to be like that. And that's what glues us together. It's like, okay, so you speak French, that's fine. We barely understand each other. you speak Italian, that's also fine. But we stick to our constitution, and our constitution says people are on top, and that's it.
Man, I mean, that distrust of government is something I think everyone should have, and I think it's changing here. We traditionally have distrust of parties. Like if you are, more working class, you distrust the Conservatives because you believe they look after their friends and the rich. And if you're a Conservative, you distrust Labour because you think they're socialists and they're going to steal more of your money. It always tended historically to be a distrust of parties. There is now a massive growing distrust of government. Voter turnout was 60% in the last election. That's been, I think it was the lowest for like 30, 40 years. That says there's more of a distrust of government, which I think is a good thing.
Yes.
I think we should all distrust government. I think, again, going back to the forefathers, they distrusted government and tried as government people. I mean, George Washington, he could have become king. He turned it down because he distrusted the whole process. And I think that culture of distrust is such a good thing. And we need to, and I think it's coming for us. Essentially our, whatever it was,
1848.
I think our 1848 moment's coming in this country somewhere or another, in that a lot of people sort of realise it doesn't matter what I fucking do. It doesn't matter who I vote for. They're all shit. They're all letting us down. Not enough people are there, but we're getting there. It's just, what do we do with that? What is our revolution? Because I'm feeling revolutionary at the moment. I don't want a bloody, violent internal civil war.
Not.
I'd prefer Nick Carter's peaceful revolution, but I feel like it's coming. I feel like it's needed. It's like, but how does it happen? How do we steal the Swiss playbook? How do we do that? Like, because to me, the minute you contacted me, I was kind of aware of it. Giacomo Zucco told me a lot about Switzerland, said it's an amazing place. And, other people I know told me it's an amazing place. And I'd never really spent much time looking at it. After you contacted me, I was doing my research. I was like, this seems to be working. Why the fuck don't we have this?
Yeah, I mean, you should always mistrust the centralized power structures. I think that's kind of a very good principle to have, and everything is a scale, right? It's never binary, but it's on that scale you should work towards more decentralization, towards more power to the people. That just push for that, and then I mean, how could it work out in the end in the UK? I mean, that's definitely not up to me, right? I couldn't say how that works, but usually. I mean, what you can see historically, massive changes always happened with some sort of like either the currency collapsed or really you vote in somebody like a reform party and it still somehow works out. I don't know.
Yeah. From your observations, I mean, you said that you like the UK. And
I do. I love it.
What do you think are the most fundamental things we need to fix? When, do you look and go, oh, that to me, that bit's obvious. You're completely failing there. That's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, from the outside at least. And I really don't want to come across as I'm here giving you advice. I can just say
Please come here and give me advice.
I can just say what is working back home. And that's not, maybe that cannot be replicated one by one. But I mean, from the outside, one thing I always found somewhat hilarious is that there was so much change politically. Like your prime ministers changed every 2 weeks. At least it felt like. I was like, okay, where is that stability? Because in Switzerland, the power of the government is very limited, but it's stable. It's very stable. Everything takes forever. Like that's a good thing. So do not increase speed in general. Lower speed for politicians. Because, for instance, another example, we had this Energiewende, the energy change. We want to become sustainable as well. And so we have a very close comparison to Germany. Germany, under Merkel, they pretty much decided and then they, switched off all
the nuclear power.
All nuclear power is switched off, and now they're running on coal, and it's a mess, and it's completely deindustrialized. The decision to do that was more or less at the same time as it was taken in Switzerland. But for us, it just takes so long, and then we have referendum after referendum after referendum, and now people realized it's probably not that smart. So our nuclear power reactors, they still run. I would still argue we should have pushed for more earlier on, but it will come. But they still run. So we still have a comparably stable and also comparably cheap energy infrastructure. And that was the main reason, was because we are slow. Our political system is slow but stable. And so I think if you have the chance to push for push for change, then I would say focus on smaller is better than bigger. Meaning focus on municipality, focus on Bedford. That's where you can make a change. Like Jordan Peterson always talks about, clean up your room before you try to change the world.
Your bed.
And that's that's a good thing. Then focus on stability rather than speed, and just focus on including the people. Like in general, you can see that a lot of working class people, but also everyday people, they create value. They create so much value in society. And we should really come away from that image that we have some sort of political overlords who know better, because they clearly don't. They just cook with water like everybody else. It should be a relationship on eye level. Or actually I have to correct that. Not on eye level. It should be the case that people are on top and political system, they serve the people and not the other way around. And that's how you should look, how people should look at it, in my opinion. And you can make that change locally.
Oh man, so is Switzerland pretty pro Bitcoin?
I think we have European-wide. We have the highest. Unfortunately, it's still called crypto adoption and not Bitcoin adoption. But we have like I think about 22% was the last research. And yeah, I mean that comes with our culture and also with the strong Swiss franc. So people understand it better, I would say.
Yeah, interesting.
Helps having no capital gains either.
Got no cap gains on Bitcoin?
Yes, we don't have capital gains at all.
Oh, I'm coming.
Yes.
Fuck it, let's move. What about inheritance tax?
None.
No inheritance, no cap gains.
No. We do have, and that's interesting.
And guns, and you got guns.
Yeah, we got guns. Yeah, but we don't have a gun culture like the US. It's more like we have a militia military.
Yeah.
So, and that's why every man has a gun at home, and then yes, it's allowed, but it's not like a gun culture.
Well, it's more regulated.
Yeah, it's more regulated, and also not as. I mean, people have guns, and I think it won't change. But Swiss people like to have that independence. But it's not like in the US. It's
not your Christmas card with
no,
exactly.
That's a bit different.
I got my gun. Yeah.
No, that's.
I say that my bloody my Facebook picture is me in the desert in Vegas with an AR-15. I got in trouble for that.
Really?
Wow. Well, look, thank you. I really appreciate you coming over talking about this. I'm so fascinated by this model. It's another rabbit hole for me to go down alongside everything I'm trying to study with regards to what happened in the US. And I keep thinking, like, where does change come from? How do you force change? And my headspace is locally. Like, what can we do? Like, what can be done in Bedford? And unfortunately, we aren't culturally set up. Our governance structure isn't set up like you have it, but perhaps some change will come in time. Perhaps more people talking about this or hearing about this will go, hold on, I want a bit of that. It's a bit like when Trump won. A lot of people in the UK, most people didn't like him in the first election. A lot of people looking going, I want a bit of that.
No, exactly. But I think you're doing a phenomenal job. I mean, that's also why I reached out. I really admire that on what you do in Bedford. I mean, that's how it should start. Because that's what matters. That's this small community is what matters. It doesn't matter the big national government. It's too far away. They don't do the right thing for the public, for the local communities. And I think you're doing a great job from that. I mean, I follow it pretty closely, and so I wish you all the best.
Well, we need to get you over for watch a game of football.
Yeah, sure.
Come and see our football
I'd love
team.
to, yeah.
Phil, listen, love this. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I think we're going to stay in touch, and I think we should do this again sometime because I'm only going further down this rabbit hole. I'm only trying to affect more change in Bedford. This is going to be very influential to the kind of things I'd like to do. I wish I could sell this into our mayor and our local councillors and say, look, this is how we should operate. And maybe we can. And maybe I'll come back to you and say, look, we've made a small step forward in Bedford. But I appreciate you coming in and talk about this. Yeah, it means a lot to me.
Thanks a lot for having me.
No, thank you. And thank you for everyone listening. We will see you all soon. Bye.